which is Parliament is essentially going to be shrunk. They're going to use pairs, which means one of yours, one of ours, and they're bringing it down to as few people as possible. I don't know about question time and all of that business. Frankly, who cares? How do we make sure the Parliament does what it needs to do quickly, but also that if there are some serious things that need to be pointed out, that we take the time to point those things out without it automatically descending into Team Red, Team Blue?
No, look, I think Jim Chalmers got asked, you said, we need time to consider it. And someone said, what, you've got about 24 hours. He goes, no, I meant overnight. So, I mean, I think there is sufficient goodwill. I have to say that I think Albo has a fair point. When in the past we've talked about war cabinets involve both sides of the federal parliament. What's happening at the moment is that federal Labor is being excluded on the argument that they're not a government. It would have meant that things got done a little bit quicker if Albo had been invited in. And I don't want to say he's being churlish by keeping out, but it would make some of this stuff much simpler and quicker if he was inside the tent rather than being outside.
But isn't his only relevance? But I'm just saying, right? I understand what you're saying. But isn't his only relevance literally the numbers to move through legislation? I don't know what. I don't know if these blokes are talking behind the scenes. I'm imagining they are, and if they're not, that's a failure clearly of both. You can't. I mean, if you're Albo, you don't sit back waiting to be called. They've all got the private numbers here to work some things through. I just think the idea of if you had every opposition leader sitting around the table, that basically is 9 people whose main job is to take notes and leak it to their favourite newspaper.
Okay. We keep saying we're at war. We keep trying to compare it to the war cabinet. Well, the war cabinet had both sides. And at the moment, this is just a small point. I'm just saying things could be easier, particularly when it came to the packages tomorrow. To get them through as fast as they need and get out of there so politicians can get on with what they're supposed to be doing, running the country and fixing this problem or trying to deal with this problem. Okay. It would just be a little bit easier if the Prime Minister would just take a deep breath and go, no, look, it's bringing it in for the sake of getting on with the job.
I think the War Cabinet was the UK.
What exactly would actually move faster? Like, what would move faster? Labor doesn't have the numbers to block anything. What are they possibly blocking at this point by not being in the Senate?
Sorry, the Senate could actually cause a lot of problems along the way. I think most governments, including the one I was part of, all discovered that along the way if there was problems. So while there is bipartisan consensus, things move very smoothly.
Crossbenchers all said they're backing the government at this point. I mean, it would just be insane for Labor to jump on any of these stimulus measures now.
No, what the Labor has said is that they think there's a way to do things to suggest some improvements. They will look to do that. But ultimately, if that's rejected, they will pass this. They're not suggesting that they're trying to hold anything up. I'm just making the point that in terms of conversations, it would be a little easier if the Prime Minister actually lived up to his war cabinet description.
Well, hang on. OK, look, I don't know who used the term. If the Prime Minister used it, it's a reference to the UK, not what happened here in Australia. Stephen, I'm not ending on a churlish note. I just want to get to some calls, OK?